What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. And I have a treat for you guys today. This is Lizzy Lasher. She is a friend. Lizzy Lasher? Lasher. Let me say that right. Lasher. My bad. This is a friend of mine that I met on the Bird app on Twitter. And not only does she love punk rock and liberty, but she is also in recovery. So this is yet another story of hope. Lizzy did a fantastic job. She talked about being nervous beforehand, which I get, but man, you can't even tell. Like, she just has an awesome story. And we talked for quite a bit about, where she was at, where she, what happened and where she's going with her future. And this is just a really informative, great episode. And so without any further ado, here is Lizzy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the one and only Lizzy. Lizzy, thank you so much for making time to come on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's pretty hot here right now, but yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
The ass end of summer is always the worst,
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Somehow I managed to not put in my AC all summer because I've been working a lot and I wasn't coming home till evening, and now it's just like, okay, well, why do it now?
You've gone this long, fuck it, right?
Yep.
That's great. Well, we cross paths online, and you have an affinity for punk rock. You also do the recovery thing. You're yet another spectacular person that I found on the Bird app, and I really wanted to get you on here to share your story, talk about what was going on. So give us a little background, like, who is Lizzy?
Well, let's see. So I grew up in a pretty normal middle class family. My parents were pretty great. Very open to us kind of finding our own paths and exploring our own way. No real abuse or trauma or anything there. My first real introduction to drugs was, I think fourth grade, when they sent, the cop from the DARE program into our schools. And he had a poster board, kind of science fair style, with all these different drugs all on the poster board. And he told us, well, this is what this drug is. This is what it will make you feel like. This is about how much it costs. And this is where you go to find it. And I thought, hey, that sounds kind of great, actually.
Yeah.
So I remember that being the first time my interest was really piqued. I kind of always, looking back on it, I always had a penchant for escapism. I used to sleep a lot because I just loved dreaming, because it was not this reality. So then I went to elementary school with a lot of kids that were their families were a lot wealthier than mine was. And so by middle school, I started to notice, hey, I'm different than these people. And so I started hanging out with other kids in middle school, skipping school, smoking a little weed, stealing some beers and liquor from my parents, that sort of thing. And let's see, then I made it through ninth grade. I made it through my first year of high school, and I just fucked everything up and didn't get the good grades. Just fucked everything up. So my parents, having realized that, they wanted to send me to like an Outward Bound style program. I don't know if you ever heard of those, but they couldn't afford it. So they decided they'd make their own. So they were going to wake me up at 5 a.m., make me do this, make me do that. And I decided, fuck this, I'm out of here. Took off.
So hold on. So Outward Bound, is that like a military type of thing? Military school?
I think so. Yeah, it's one of those, for the fuck up kids. Like, you send them away, they make you go through all these processes, not necessarily military, but that kind of mentality. Yeah.
Now, up to this point, like, how were your parents before that? Like,
They were great.
so
Yeah.
did y'all have a completely different type of relationship, I would imagine, before they went this route with you?
Well, I think they were struggling with me. I was a tremendous rebel. Um,
My people.
and yeah, yeah. And I just, they tried every method they could with me. And I would just say, no, fuck you, I'm not.
Right.
uh, so, but I think they were also just between themselves, they were going through some relationship issues of their own during that time that I wasn't necessarily privy to. That may have been an underlying thread with me acting out.
Okay.
But I didn't really recognize that at the time, and I can't really pinpoint any of my destructive behavior back to that.
Damn it.
I know.
Oh, that's funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just curious
No.
because, like, especially for your parents to try to like do that overnight, like if you had a vastly different relationship, like that would be culture shock, waking up in a different environment almost,
Yeah, no, they were just trying to do whatever they thought, they could to get me back on the right track. And I just said, fuck you. And I jumped out, I packed a bag and jumped out the window and ran away from home. And I did that for a while. So yeah. And then at one point I ended up dating a guy, and we decided I'd been raised kind of atheist, agnostic, no real religion or spiritual anything in the home, and but I was sent to Catholic school for first through third grade, so that was a weird dynamic. But so part of my rebellion after leaving home was I decided to go on a quest for God. So we kind of went hitchhiking around the country. During that period of time, we weren't doing drugs or drinking or anything. We were actually just seeking a spiritual path. And
wow.
I did find it. I didn't, and then I ended up pregnant with my daughter, who's now 23. And so, good timing that I wasn't really involved in any kind of substance abuse during all of that.
Right.
So then I moved back home to my hometown and had my baby, and I did eventually leave her dad. And so I was a really, if I do say so myself, a really good single mom for a good 6 years. We were best friends. I was a poor, struggling single mom, but we were doing good, and then I just kind of started dabbling a little bit with cocaine here and there with friends at parties. And then I'd been running a cleaning business, and one of my clients, he said he was a contractor. Well, it became pretty apparent that was a front for his drug dealing business, he was a cocaine dealer. And then my dad died, and that was really traumatic for me. He was my best friend, and I was really hurt, and I just didn't have the right tools to handle that properly. And so I went to, the guy that was a client of mine, and I said, look, it's pretty obvious what you're doing here. I just don't know if it's coke or meth, but either way, I want some. And so, trying to escape the pain of my dad having died. And so, of course, he sold me some cocaine, as cocaine dealers will do.
Yeah, they tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah. And then I got a little bit of money from my dad's estate. Somehow my mom managed to squeeze out some funds for my sister and I. It was $10,000. And when I got that check, I thought, okay, I'm definitely not going to spend all of this 10 grand on drugs. But this first 1,000, it only makes sense, because if I buy in bulk, then I can sell it to my friends. And that's just good economics,
Like a classic mistake. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, I did spend the entire 10 grand on cocaine in the course of about 2 months.
Oof.
Yeah, 2 months.
Damn.
I forgot to pay my rent. I mean, I had $10,000 and I just forgot to pay my rent, you know. So, of course, I was getting evicted. And one day, my mom stopped by. I'd been on, you know, a 3-day bender. And my daughter was still living with me, unfortunately. You know, this period of time, you know, about 2 months, it wasn't that long of a period. So it is a huge regret of mine. But my mom stopped by one day and I was passed out, having been on a 3-day cocaine bender. And my boyfriend was there watching my daughter, but my mom picked her up and took her for what she thought was likely the weekend, you know, while I got my shit together. Turns out I did not get my shit together in a weekend. So yeah, my mom ended up having my daughter for a good few years. I had an ex-boyfriend that had come back to town. He had moved to Santa Fe. He was kind of trying to escape some hardcore, dangerous, bad situations of his own. And he moved to Santa Fe to get away from that trouble that he was in. And he came back and saw the state I was in and said, hey, why don't you come with me? You can stay with me. You can get clean, all of that. So I did. But we didn't have any knowledge or tools of how to do that. And so what we were doing was just getting shit-faced drunk every night in order for me to get clean from cocaine.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, that doesn't work out so well. And, you know, when we had been dating, he was a real jealous guy. We'd had a lot of fights. So one of those nights, we were out drinking at a bar. We got in a fight. I made him let me drive his truck home because I was less drunk than he was, which wasn't saying much. And, you know, I parked the car. So he was a couple steps ahead of me going inside the house. He'd been renting a room from a guy. And he went in the bedroom and shot himself in the head with his 45. And we had been out shooting that same gun earlier that day, taking pictures. So I called 911. You know, she told me, the 911 operator told me, you know, is he breathing? And I said, I don't know. He's making some noise. And, you know, meanwhile, his brain is not inside his head. There's no, she told me to give him CPR, and I believe that I did. You know, there's no amount of CPR that can bring someone back from a point blank 45 bullet to the head.
Right.
But I believe that I did. And, you know, like many people in serious trauma situations, I blacked that part out. My brain protected me from those memories. The next thing I remember, there's a cop giving me a gunpowder residue test on my hand. They took me in and interrogated me for about 13 hours, which, you know, gunpowder residue tests come back a lot quicker than that. They could have let me go a lot sooner. I don't know what the reasoning was. Maybe I was still drunk. That's possible. But yeah, so that happened. The guy whose room we'd been renting did not want any part of us, well, me, after that. And so I went and stayed with his boss for a couple days, just kind of slept straight through for 3 days. Eventually, his friends came down from Colorado to pick up his truck. And they decided, sure, I guess we'll bring you back with us too. Pretty much most of his friends and family at that point, and some of them still to this day, this was, I think, 16, 17, 18 years ago. I don't even know how long. really think I killed him, really consider me a murderer. And, so I wasn't greeted with open arms upon coming back to town, and I was still struggling with that serious level of trauma, and so I just wanted to get fucked up all the time, of course, and I did. And then some friends from Denver had called me. They'd called me previously and said, hey, we're getting clean. If you want to come up here and rent a room from us, that'd be great. At that time, I was not interested in living with people who were getting clean and getting their life together. So I declined. Then they called me again shortly after the ex-boyfriend's suicide. And they said, hey, actually, we're not clean anymore. We're partying again. And so the offer still stands if you want to move up here. And I said, hell yeah, I want to move up there. So I did. I moved up to Denver, and I immediately just started smoking crack, man.
That will get you. That one.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So not a great path.
No. That's the thing is because I had, and I'm not trying to step on your story by any means. I'm fascinated. This is great stuff. But I started out with powder coke as well, when it came to cocaine. And when I made that transition from coke into crack, holy shit. I mean, it's just, it's night and day,
Yeah, it's a completely different world.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, neither one are advisable.
No,
but,
no.
But yeah. So, and I guess I skipped over some of the teenage years too, where, I was dabbling with different things, psychedelics. I actually did a little meth, but it never really took, as, I don't know, a 16-year-old. So, I'd had experiences with this sort of thing, but nothing ever really stuck. I never really got addicted to anything. Until those traumas really seeped in, and I just couldn't handle it. I didn't have the right tools, So then I was in Denver, smoking crack every day, all day long, as you do. And, ended up starting to date a guy who was a big time crack dealer. We started moving lots of weight out there. Let's see. We got pulled over once. We were having a fight. I had all my stuff in the car. We got pulled over. The cops in the neighborhood that we were living in knew him already, but they didn't know me. I was kind of new on the scene. And they arrested him. They did not arrest me. They impounded my car. He had a camera case in my car with, I don't know, a whole bunch of cash and cocaine residue and a digital scale and all this stuff. And somehow they still, the cops, and there were various other, differently weighed out bags of weed, a bunch of pills, a bunch of paraphernalia, all kinds of shit. And they impounded my car. They gave me a ticket for the weed. And they hit the cops, they hit me up, after he was already back in jail, and said, hey, we have a bunch of cash that, is this yours? Do you want to come claim this money? And I was like, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been helping people move. That's definitely not my cash. I don't know. So they somehow the ticket for the marijuana got dropped. They ended up keeping my car. I never was in a good enough mental state to get it out of impound. But yeah, so because of that, word on the street was, oh, well, they arrested him and not her, so she must be a rat, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and why they had arrested him too, they knew who he was. They got him out of my car. They planted a baggie on him. Not to say that we didn't have stuff on us, but that particular baggie that they pulled out of his pocket was not in there before, 100%. they planted that shit on him to
Right.
be able to arrest him again. So that happened, then just a whole series of bullshit gutter crap. I got kidnapped by some, there's a lot of Bloods and Crips up there at that point. Some leader of the Bloods sent his minions out to kidnap me. And
Damn, Lizzy.
Yeah, just all,
Jesus.
Yeah.
You were running wild then.
It was pretty fucking bad, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been held down with glowing red hot metal forks and knives to my face as a threat. Just people in those environments, get fucked up and do fucked up things.
Yeah, they do. I've been in similar, I can recall like definitely winding up in those types of situations, having a gun in my head, getting shot at, and did you have those moments of clarity? Like when that was happening, like, this is not what I planned. This is not the way I saw my life.
I mean, every day almost, I would look at a picture of my daughter, especially.
Oh.
And just go, I got to stop this. I got to get out of here. I can't be doing this. And I'm not being a mother to my child. And I would cry, and then I would smoke some more crack, because that drive just overcomes you,
Yeah.
And I would think, after I'd been up a couple days, I would think, okay, this is the time. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to not do it again.
Right.
And every single time I was wrong because I didn't remove myself from the situations. I was still, I overdosed hundreds of times on crack, which is not actually an easy drug to overdose on.
Nah, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's
Three
tough.
of those times I actually technically died. I kind of had a near-death experience with one of them. I remember a whole thing going through a tunnel, that kind of whole ordeal.
Yeah.
And still, I just couldn't stop. I'd get picked up and go to jail for, on paraphernalia charges or whatever bullshit charges over and over and over again. They'd keep me for a night and then release me the next day. Until one day, I think it was, I got taken in for trespassing, disturbing the peace, miscellaneous bullshit like that. And the judge gave me a choice of go to jail for 2 weeks, or you can do this program. At the time I called it "Quit Smoking Crack, You Dumb Bitch" program.
Yeah.
So I chose that, and I went to the first one, and then I never went back. So then I ended up with a warrant for my arrest, and eventually got picked up on that. Went to jail for 2 weeks. I wear glasses. I didn't have glasses at the time, so that was great, going to Denver County Jail blind. But, the whole first week, while my brain still hadn't kind of cleared out yet, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to, when this is up, I'm going to call my new crack dealer boyfriend and have him pick me up. And to his credit, he said no. He said, no, you are going overboard. Now, he was not at the time a drug user. He was just a dealer. He had done his fair share of prison time, and he was just using it as a money-making venture for himself. And I was clearly off the deep end, and he said, no, this has gone too far. You're out of control. I'm not going to come pick you up. Why don't you call your mom? So I did eventually, after, a little while of considering that. I called my mom, and she said, okay, well, I'll come pick you up from jail when they release you. And she did the research to get me to find a recovery house for me to go to in Colorado Springs, and she checked me into the recovery house, and I ended up living there. I checked in there at 2 weeks clean, and I ended up living there for 13 months.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really the thing that saved me, that and the requirements that they had of me, going to 12-step meetings, however many per week it was, getting a job, doing this, the structure. At that point, my brain was so fried. I just needed somebody to tell me, do this or else, the end,
Yeah. Structure.
Yeah.
Needed some structure,
Yeah.
I mean, we're like that. We're so often like that when we come in, especially because we don't know what the fuck to do. I mean, smoking crack as a means of a coping skill. I mean, that is the basis of our understanding of the world around us. Like, so yeah, having that step-by-step instruction, and shown like, hey, look, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. Like, a lot of people take that for granted, but I have a newfound respect to that, as it sounds like you do as well. For people who had the patience to tell cats like us how to do it,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was a mess. The first meeting I went to ever was actually a closed AA meeting, and it was across the street from the house. And I didn't know the difference between an open and a closed meeting. The girls just said, "Come with me we're going to this meeting." So I go, okay. So, I'm introducing myself, and I'm all, here's my name. I'm an addict. And, oh my God, the looks on people's faces. And someone came up and whispered to me, "Yeah, you can't say that here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They go, "This is for alcoholics." I go, "Well, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict." "Well, then you can't be here." And I was like, what the fuck kind of bullshit is this? So my first introduction to 12-step was a little bit rough.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's pretty shitty that I just can't speak my truth. Now, of course, later I grew to understand, okay, it's perfectly acceptable for people to have closed meetings and open meetings, and I just didn't know. But I did feel like the reaction from them was a little bit overboard. I didn't know any better, and I was brand new.
Right.
But then it was explained to me, and I started going to all different kinds of meetings, NA, AA, CA, all the A's, and got a sponsor, worked a program. It legitimately saved my life. Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So how much clean time do you have now?
Well, let's see. Well, okay, this was 2008 when I got clean the first time.
Okay.
I did that for a good 3.5, 4 years or so. Then, there's a place in the big book that you're probably familiar with that says basically, hey, if you don't think you're an alcoholic, why don't you go out and try drinking and let us know how that works?
Yep.
Well, I decided, yeah, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And
I'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah, I did. So I was like, oh, well, all right. I was a drug addict. I wasn't an alcoholic. It's been 4 years. I'm probably good, and alcohol was never a major problem for me. I can probably just do these things normally, like normal people.
Right.
So, it started out, I want to say moderate, but that's moderate from my perspective, not moderate from a normal person's perspective. So, it was a good, 4 or 5 years of, in my view, moderate drinking. It really wasn't, but I wasn't going to jail. I wasn't losing my job. I was still waking up. I was still taking care of my stuff. But, I'd have awful hangovers and maybe call off I would, fight with the boyfriend a lot. I would not be as present for my family as I should have been. I would take it too far and get too drunk. I would, it really wreaked havoc on my mental state too. I'm pretty prone to depression naturally. And so, I was just living in this state where I was pretty constantly depressed. And, you know, newsflash, like maybe, taking in depressants on a regular basis is going to add to that. And it did. And, then finally towards the end there, again, somebody had cocaine, and I thought, okay, let me try some of this. And it was shit. It was not good. And I go, hey, you guys, is this really like the best that you're able to find in town right now? And they're like, yeah, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, okay. So I saw an in for a money-making opportunity. So I, went back doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna find better quality stuff and make a bunch of money because clearly there's a hole in the market. And so I did that, and of course I started doing it all the time again. That's not surprising to anyone who knows anything about drug abuse. And then I went through a cycle, of, okay, this has to stop. I'm gonna get clean. I actually managed for a while there, like, to persuade myself into thinking that I can stay clean and still sell cocaine to people. I would make it about 3 months. I'd do pretty well with that for about 3 months, and then I would go off the deep end for a couple weeks and then start the cycle back again. And, interspersed with all of that is, of course, booze and pills and just whatever. Cocaine tended to be my drug of choice, but, I've done all of it.
Right.
And, until finally one day it just stuck again. And, this, I realized, okay, you got to quit being around cocaine. You can't be doing this shit and actually expect to get clean. And it was actually, I started going to recovery meetings again, but I was pretty kind of nervous to go back into the 12-step rooms. I didn't want to run into old people. I didn't, I kind of felt like, oh, here I am. I'd been doing so well. And then here I am crawling back in with my tail between my legs. And, in hindsight, yeah, maybe that's something I should have just kind of bucked up and gone ahead and done. But I started seeking out alternatives. I knew I needed help. And so I started seeking out alternatives because I was too scared to go back into the AA meetings. And I stumbled upon a program called Refuge Recovery. And so I started going to those meetings. And Refuge Recovery it wasn't available back when I was getting clean in 2008. It seems that just kind of recently in the past years, there's a lot of new recovery programs springing up as alternatives for people. So yeah, this is a Buddhist approach to recovery. It started by this guy, Noah Levine, and I had known of him. I'd read one of his books previously. It was called Dharma Punks. And it was kind of an autobiographical book that he had written about his life, being kind of a punk teenager in Southern California and getting into drugs. His dad was a Buddhist meditation teacher, and he ended up going on a, what do you call that? Like I don't know. He went on a trip to India to get clean, which his issue had been heroin. So that sounds pretty hellish, being in India.
Yeah.
Getting off of heroin.
Holy
Yeah.
shit, that sounds awful.
Yeah. But it kind of, I related to him. He was an outspoken punk rocker. He had gotten clean, and I'd read his book, and then I find out that this refuge recovery program was designed by him. And I thought, okay, I can relate to this guy, and let's check this out. And I really, really enjoyed it. It was exactly what I needed at that time to get back into recovery. It's a little bit more of an open, less structured system than the 12-step programs, but they do have quite a bit in common. One thing about refuge recovery is it's non-theistic. There, you are not necessarily required to seek a higher power. I personally have never taken any kind of issue with the higher power dynamic in 12-step. I think that it's really advantageous for most people. I think that it works. I think that it's a good way to live. I think that the 12 steps are ancient wisdom that anybody and everybody really should use as just kind of a guideline for your life, and keep yourself in check. I don't think they're just for addicts and alcoholics. I think everyone can benefit by working a set of steps.
Absolutely.
However, there are people that I've run into who have religious-based traumas from their childhoods, and they would come to me and say, hey, in confidence, hey, I need help, but I just don't think I can do the whole God thing. And, I try to explain to these people, it's not really a God thing. It's a higher power of your understanding. It can be anything. But still, for people with, I think, serious religious-based traumas from their past, it's a hurdle that they maybe aren't ready to jump over yet. They have a block. And anything that sounds like God, they just, it's a trigger for them.
Yeah,
and
it messes them up, man.
Yeah. So I found that with refuge recovery, that's a really great alternative for people who, some of the ways of the 12 steps just don't jive with them. I think there's multiple paths to recovery. I think everybody's different. And one thing I do really like about refuge recovery, well, and it's since been split up too. As there are with any human groups, there was a moment where one faction didn't agree with the other faction, and it divided into two. So there's refuge recovery is the first program, and then a division came, and a group decided they wanted to start their own thing, and so they did, based on the same principles, and they called their program Recovery Dharma. So for anybody listening that thinks a Buddhist approach might work for them, if you just look up online Refuge Recovery or Recovery Dharma, you can take a look and see if there's any of those in-person meetings in your area. They're getting more and more common. I think my town has maybe one refuge recovery meeting and 3 recovery Dharma meetings now throughout the week. So
right on.
So we do a meditation, which I've found very useful. I've gotten a lot of introspection and a lot of learned a lot in those meditations. So I started doing that, going to refuge recovery. I went on a tirade. You asked how long I've been clean. This time, a little over 2 years.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you been back to any other 12-step meetings?
Oh, yeah. I did eventually, after I got a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
I did eventually start going back. I chose meetings that I hadn't gone to before.
Oh, yeah.
Still kind of trying to hide.
Got to be covert. Got to be undercover. I get it.
That didn't really work. I still ran into people,
That is one thing about us. We fucking network. My God. And we don't even realize that we're doing it. It's old new behavior, like, oh, such and such and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, every state and people in every state around you and all the way across the country,
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's cool. That's how I ran into you,
Yeah, absolutely.
I joined Twitter because I was, oh boy, Facebook Facebook deleted my account. They'd been banning me, censored me for all kinds of things, and I was just really getting, kind of disturbed by the state of things on Facebook, disturbed by the state of the world, disturbed by some of what my closest friends, punk rocker, anti-establishment type people were saying and doing over the course of 2020. I was like, wait a second, you guys are like supposed to be against the man, anti-establishment, do your own thing, like freedom. Yeah. And you're not living by that. Were you just faking it all along? So anyway, I was really, I think a lot of them are. So I was just really disenchanted. And
you had Jill Biafra, like, shilling for Biden.
Yeah, dude. What? And Mitt Romney, I think, too. I think he came out in favor of Mitt Romney.
Jesus Christ.
Biden and Mitt Romney. Like, dude, really? Come on, man. Yeah. People have lost their fucking minds over this past couple of years. But yeah, so that's how I ended up on Twitter. I was like, I got to find my people. Like, I gotta figure out somewhere just for my own mental solace that there are other people who feel the same way as me. Yeah. And, it's the same thing as meetings. I heard, one thing I really liked, I was listening to your podcast from the other day, and your friend Ash said something about recovery meetings are some of the best proof of anarchism in action. And I was like, yeah, dude. Yeah. For real.
Straight up. So like, I started working because we talk quite often, but, I started working at this rehab, and it's glaringly obvious that the clinical side, the medical expert, scientific expert side trumps any semblance of actual hardcore experienced recovery. So in terms of staff, they're taking the master's degree and the license to this or that over the person who's struggled for years and years and actually got recovery. And the thing is that these same people back in the 50s were the ones that were locking us up in prison, saying that we could never get clean. There was no hope for us. And it's like they're still fucking running the show while pretending that they, give a damn. I don't know why I brought that up. Yeah, I do. Because the 12-step 12-step meetings came about, recovery came about out of necessity. Like, we had to band together because fucking nobody else will. And if that's not anarchy, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it was a grassroots movement to help ourselves, and to figure it out for ourselves. And that's way punk rock, way anarchy, and way community. It's all of those things working together to just, that's all right. So that's a lot of what this recovery coaching work that I'm doing now is, and why I'm so thrilled to be involved in this. So the recovery coaching, like I said, it's kind of somewhere in between having a sponsor and having a counselor. We are not certified as counselors or therapists at all. But it's also not quite the sponsor route either. We don't subscribe to any one tradition or any one program. We believe that there are multiple pathways to recovery, and whatever works best for anyone is great, so long as it actually is working. There's a lot of harm reduction stuff in there too, which I did kind of struggle with, to be honest, at first, because, I do come from a culture of abstinence is the only way.
Right.
I think abstinence is the best way. However, there are people who, if you're shooting up heroin versus smoking weed every day, I'm going to call that a win, I'm going to call that a win. Whatever works for each person. And if that's what you can do, I'll take that over you keeping doing heroin any fucking day of the week.
Hell yeah. Dead addict can't get clean. You know what I mean? So fucking keep them
Yeah.
alive until they make it to us at least.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Well, and and there are there's medical treatments that there's like the methadones and the Suboxones and things like that I've struggled with accepting are a valid form of the process. I now recognize, everybody is different. Everybody's an individual. Everyone has their own path in their own way. And for a lot of people, those things can be really successful.
Right.
So I do have to honor that for them too. That's one thing the recovery coaching taught me. But the reason I really do love it is I think often, so I've been working a lot with women at a recovery house. I've been going every week, bringing a meeting to them, bringing different meetings. They're pretty used to going to the 12-step meetings. So I've been bringing some refuge recovery and some all recovery meetings. I don't know if you're familiar with that. All
I've
recovery.
heard of that.
Yeah, it's really not structured. It's not very structured. It's basically just a space for anybody from any kind of program to just kind of a moment for everyone to get together and say whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on with you, whatever you're working on. And I think that can be beneficial for a lot of people too.
Yeah.
My boss, my friend, who is now my boss with the recovery coaching, she runs an organization in town called Recover Simply. And she does SMART recovery meetings. That apparently you have to be certified in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't do any of those. But the recovery coaching, I think, can be really valuable, especially for a lot of people dealing with the court system still, people who are still on parole or probation, where a drug and alcohol counselor would have to report anomalies to your parole officer. I do not. Anything that people I'm working with tell me is 100% confidential. Even if they come into a private session with me drunk or high, I'm not mandated whatsoever to report them to their parole officer, which I think is really beneficial.
Yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're talking about, fuck, man, I had a hard time dropping my walls down and letting you look behind the curtain as it was. If I knew that, like, you would go snitching on me, I'm not going to tell you shit.
Absolutely. And, drug and alcohol counselors, through the CAC program, they're required to. If you're on parole, they have to rat you out if you're showing up drunk.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand, that's all working within the system, and so the system is going to protect itself. But I don't think that works for addicts. I don't think we trust people enough to open up. And the whole thing here about recovery is trying to open yourself up, do some introspection, figure out what your fucking issues are, and heal them.
Yes.
And you can't trust somebody you're talking to keep that private, even when you fuck up.
Right.
Even if you fuck up, it's all part of the process. All of us have fucked up.
A lot.
Yeah. Most of us have gotten clean or sober and then gone back and done it again and done it again.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just really great, I think, for people to have someone that they know isn't going to get them sent back to fucking prison if they open up to, So that's what I really like about this recovery coaching stuff. I do really like the organization I'm doing it through, Recover Simply. Her mission, I think, is a bit unique too. And she really feels that people in recovery, especially early recovery, we are bombarded with so much work that we have to do. It's always work on yourself, work the steps, go to meetings, do this, do that, do that. And there's reasons for that, and it's positive and beneficial. But a lot of times, especially for some of these women or men, I've only been working with the women so far, that are involved in the court systems, they have even more requirements. They have to get drug tested, and they have to go to court, and they have visitation with their kids, and they have to pay all these fines. And so our mission at Recover Simply is really just kind of to chill the fuck out and make things fun, because I think sometimes in the process we lose sight of the fact that we got into recovering from our addictions because we wanted our lives back.
Yeah.
We wanted to actually live again and have a fun life. It's not all work all the time. We do a once a month. Well, actually, it's once a week now. But we do a craft night once a week where you don't have to be in recovery. It's just a substance-free event. We have an artist come in and guide us through a craft. We've done like happy hours with bands that are substance-free events. You don't have to be in recovery, but we're not gonna be having alcohol or any drugs there, just so that people can kind of start to remember, oh yeah, like life is fun. It's supposed to be fun. And I'm doing this to get my life back, not to just be in a constant cycle of recovery, recovery, recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a recurring theme that I've seen with a lot of people, is that like their families go from being sad because they lost their loved one to using, to happy because they're back, to sad again because they lost them, to, recovery. And one of the things that we don't really learn how to do is balance, and
yeah,
what a beautiful thing you are doing, teaching balance. Like, that's awesome.
I think it's really great. I think it's really useful.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I left the 12-step community the first time around, and decided to use that phrase in the book, if you think you can drink, why don't you go try it, to my own ends, was because I just, after about 4 years, I started seeing some of these people that, again, had legitimately set me on the path to save my life. I don't want to get that twisted here, but I just started noticing, hey, some of these people don't do anything else. Some of these people have really substituted their old addictions for this new addiction. And that's fine. If that, again, harm reduction, if, that's far better than what they were doing before. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone for that.
Right.
But that wasn't what I got into it for. I got into it to get my life back and to do the things I used to do before addiction. I did not want to just only have this one thing in my life and just always be focused on the problems in myself that I was trying to overcome.
Yeah.
I wanted to I wanted to go roller skating. I wanted to go, do art projects. I wanted to hang out with people. I wanted to have a solid foundation, but be able to also just relax and have fun again, and I think we lose sight of that a lot.
Yeah, big time. I'll tell you, I wound up in detoxes a lot before I actually, got it. And every time I went, I'd hear a little piece, right? A little piece of the puzzle. And the most prolific speaker I ever heard on an H&I panel was an old guy from AA. And he came in and he talked for 35 minutes about scuba diving. That was his new thing. And I remember just being so absolutely just drawn into that. I was like fixated on this talk. He's talking about seeing the dolphins and seeing all these coral reefs, and like, he didn't even talk about him getting fucked up. He just talked about scuba diving for 35 minutes. And I was like fixated. I loved it. But that was what I wanted. That's what I've always wanted. And I've found it to various degrees, not like him, or at least not like he made it sound like that dude. Damn. I mean, but there's something to that. You know what I mean? We got to learn to live too, man, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I've been doing that. It's going great. I really feel I'm getting a lot out of doing this work. It's a typical typically known thing in recovery circles that, helping other people actually helps us more than it
Yes.
helps anyone else. And that's holding true for me doing this work. But also I'm seeing the dynamic change in some of these women. I'm seeing, here I am, somebody they don't know, and I start coming into their house and talk to them about stuff. And it's taken some time. You have to earn people's trust. And you can't, we're not going to just trust anyone just straight off the street. And, it takes time to
No.
build a relationship. So I've been doing this for a little while now, and I'm starting to see, okay, they trust me now, and they're asking me questions now, and they actually value my experience and opinion on some of these things. And I'll find myself, it's like from God. It's like something is speaking through me. I'll find myself just all of a sudden saying these things, and I'm like, oh, I don't know where that came from, but that's actually great advice. Like I
should probably do that shit.
I should probably do that too, And
oh God, I love it. Yeah.
So that's been happening, and I just see their eyes changing, lighting up, and trusting me, and I'm really getting a lot out of it, and I think that they're starting to also, and I think this is a great program, the recovery coaching. It's a few different training sessions. It's not like a whole certification program that's like a couple years long or anything that you have to do. So it's pretty easy to get into. I hear that corporations are even hiring recovery coaches to be on staff to help their employees. So it's kind of a legitimate career path, while also helping people and not too much investment up front to get into. And it's a way that I can help people. So, I'm still kind of running my cleaning business, and I'm doing this now too. And we're just gonna kind of just do both for a while and see where these things take me.
Well, see, here's the thing on the investment upfront type of thing that you're talking about. Like, folks like you and I, we are fucking invested. Like, we put in plenty of time learning the intricacies of how to fuck up, but also come back from the abyss, So, I'm hoping that we eventually start to see a shift, in how treatment is approached.
Mm-hmm.
We're not quite there yet, but I feel like we're getting a little bit closer, or at least I'm hopeful for it. And if not, I think the libertarian and anarchist solution is just start making our own fucking programs and going for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we are starting to see that shift. Like I said, in 2008, there were not really options, and I'm starting to see all these other options kind of spring up. And options that are based on, peer-to-peer support.
Yeah.
The reason I can do this work is because I've been there. I know what you're struggling with. I've been there myself. I fucked it up myself. I'm no better than you. I just finally, for whatever reason, took this path to figure my shit out. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can try to help you figure out your path to figure your shit out too.
Right. Right.
I think that peer-to-peer, not top-down approach is wildly more beneficial. I think people are, better able to trust you when they know, when I can open up and say, look, here's some of the bullshit I've done. Then people don't feel so alone. They don't feel like they can't trust me. I see people getting hired for jobs in some recovery fields that, have a master's or a bachelor's or, whatever in these therapy fields, but they've never been there. And
nope.
In fact, the manager of this house that I've been going to, she had to quit. She had to move out of state, and she was looking for someone else to take over. And she goes, can you please apply for this job? Because I am interviewing person after person. They're all like in their mid-20s. They all have these degrees, but none of them have any goddamn common sense. And none of them have been where we've been. I know your story. Can you apply for this job? Unfortunately, that job required a bachelor's degree in the field. But I think little by little, yeah, people are starting to recognize the value of experience over just a degree.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did too. I
Yeah.
have seen, but alternatively, I have seen people just like us who actually managed to get a
Oh
master's
yeah.
degree.
Oh yeah. That too.
And man, you want to talk about some no bullshit characters right there.
Yeah.
That's the ones who are making some waves.
Oh
And
yeah. That's the best of both worlds. Yeah.
fuck yeah, man. Like they get it to
Mm-hmm.
the utmost degree. Because I mean, we really do there's value in, because here's the thing, 12 steps, recovery programs, whatever, they are not going to fix mental health problems.
Right.
They simply are not. Like
Right.
there are some things that program cannot cover. And so it's good to have the clinical side, but man, you got to have the experience in there. But we're going in circles. We're both in agreement on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's something I had to figure out for myself as well, with the depression. I mean, not drinking alcohol helped a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of other things that I had to do. And talk therapy even can't help with everything. Different therapies work for different people. I think we also don't focus enough on self-care. A lot of us, I know I end up holding tension in my neck and my back. I have a physical labor job. That kind of ramps up pretty quickly for me. And I don't take the time to go see a chiropractor or get a massage or do those things. And those are actually medically necessary for me. And when I finally do, we don't consider that some of those, self-care things actually make a huge difference on our mental state and how clearly we can think and function in the world. And yeah, I think those things are valuable. Meditation,
without a doubt.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So.
One thing I wanted to kind of before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask you about is whatever happened with your daughter. Did you get custody back?
Yeah. So like I said, I stayed in that recovery house for 13 months. Mm-hmm. We did a thing where while my mom had her, I was cognizant enough to know that I did not want to be one of those people who strung her along. I've seen parents in addiction put their kids on these emotional roller coasters. And I had made one promise to her and broken it. And at that point I thought, okay, that's it. I'm not doing any more of this. I know I'm not in a good enough mental state to be responsible enough to even speak to her. So I didn't even speak to her for about 3.5 years. And then when I got back and I was in that recovery house for about 13 months, we decided, well, I'm the one who fucked up. We're going to leave this up to her. She was 11 at the time. And she gets to choose when she's ready to see me. And she had some major resentments towards me, as well she should have. And so she was not ready to see me, and that was absolutely her right. I don't blame her one bit. And then it had been, over a year at that point, and my mom decided, okay, I was at my mom's house just kind of doing some things, and my daughter was about to be dropped off. And my mom goes, well, she hasn't said that she's ready, but I say, let's just have you be here and see how that goes and if she's okay. And it was amazing. Saw her, and we started, once I got an apartment, I got a little basement apartment starting out, and I would have her come over, and we slowly worked that in until I got a house. And she moved in with me full time. And yeah, So I've got actually all of her stuff. She's 23 now. I've got all of her stuff. She just moved out of her place in Denver, and she's moved back to town. So my spare room here has become her storage room until she finds a place. So
hell yeah.
So we have a great relationship now.
Hell yeah.
I'm very open and honest with her.
You got me tearing up, man. Like, that's the good shit. That is the good shit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Me too. Yeah, we're really close now. And I think, different kids go different ways, but in her case, I've been so honest about, the fact that I am just a person who struggles with addiction no matter what it is. I have to be real careful on social media. I get addicted to that shit. I'll get addicted to anything. And I've been honest with her that, there are some genetic components to that. And so she should, be mindful of that for her life.
Yeah.
And somehow she's managed to just kind of be a normal person.
Awesome.
She hasn't gotten into awful bullshit. She drinks like a normal person. She'll go out to dinner and have a margarita. That's it. And I'm just like, wow, where did this come from? I'm impressed.
What a concept, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one? What the fuck?
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know. I don't get it.
Weird. I don't get it either.
Just one beer.
Yeah.
One beer. Yeah, get out of here.
She's that kind of person, man. She can do it. And she hasn't ever really ventured into drugs. So yeah, so far so good. She's wonderful and independent, and despite all of my regrets of, I do obviously regret having put her through that, and especially missing that time with her when she was growing up that I should have these sweet memories of, and I was fucked up or MIA, and that will always be my biggest regret in life. But through that, she's become a really strong, independent person who knows what she wants and doesn't take any shit from anybody.
That's beautiful.
So yeah.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, Lizzy, this has been a great talk. You said you're nervous, but you killed this. Like,
I've never been on a podcast before, man. Of course I'm gonna be nervous.
You did great.
I'm like, should I write notes? What should I get in there? Shit. I don't know. And then I was like, okay, settle the fuck down. Let's talk to this guy who's your friend. You know? Come on.
Get it done. No, you did great. Now, one thing I always do with everybody who comes on and they're in recovery, if you could speak to that one person in the audience right now who is struggling, who wants to find a way out, what are some words of wisdom that you can lay on them?
Oh, wow, man. That is different for every person, but I think one of the universal truths for someone in that situation, who I've been on multiple occasions, just desperate and wanting a way out, but not knowing how. I really think the very first step is reach out to somebody that you know of that is doing the recovery thing, no matter what program they're involved in or involved in no program at all. Reach out, look online, find out where some meetings in your area are. If you don't know anyone personally that you think could be of value to help you, just reach out to any recovery community or any recovery person and say, hey, I'm struggling and I need help. What should I do? That's really the first step is admitting we have a problem. And it takes a certain amount of humility. We all like to think we're tough badasses. And a lot of times for me, that's a defense mechanism that I've utilized often throughout my life. But when you're when you're struggling, and nobody's going to judge you for that. Anybody, anywhere in the recovery community is going to know exactly where you're at. It's not a thing to be embarrassed of. We get it. We've been there. Just reach out to someone and ask for next steps. What can I do? Where's a meeting? Give me some guidance. There's a lot of other stuff, depending on exactly which drug you're withdrawing from or whatever. Sugar was my best friend in early recovery because you got to substitute those neurotransmitters somehow.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, just reach out. That's the main thing. Just reach out to somebody in any recovery community.
That's beautiful.
And
yes. Yeah. And that goes, if you're listening to that and that hit home, if you are that person who used to have clean time and fucked it up, you're hearing from two people who went through the same. Yep. Both Lizzy and myself came back. I had 7 years when I fell off,
man.
So, but we come back,
Yeah. It's a process. Life is a journey. That's part of the thing that I'm learning. I think a lot of times we focus on a destination. Once I get this, then I'll be fine.
Right.
That's never the case. It's a journey. We have ups and downs, and we will fail. And the real goal is how you get back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lizzy, this has been great, fantastic, and I can't thank you enough for coming on.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really great.
Anytime, man. You can mic on anytime you want, all right?
All right, sounds good. It's been great meeting you and calling you a friend on Twitter.
Likewise.
And I also have just finally officially joined the Libertarian Party. I feel like they're the only people right now that I can point to, some of them anyway, that are actually speaking up for real human freedom. And I love what you're doing with the Sober Caucus. I do have to say I haven't looked too deep into that yet, but of course, my full support for that. I think that's a wonderful venture that you're undertaking, and just props to you for that, man.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, it's a group effort, when a bunch of rebellious addicts get together, what else was supposed to happen,
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah.
Right on. Well, hey, Lizzy, you have a good night.
All right. You too, man. Thanks so much.
Anytime.
All right.
All right. There you have it. Like I said, a wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you so much to Lizzy for coming on the show. And like I also said, man, that is a story of somebody who had significant time and recovery, fell off, and managed to find their way back. So if you were that person, if that speaks to you, this episode's for you. This episode is proof that it is possible to come back, to dust yourself off and get right back into the game. And I can't thank Lizzy enough for coming on and sharing that hope with us. And there you have it. There it is, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thank you for the audience for just, listening to my content, listening to these stories, and for sharing and for doing all the wonderful things that you guys do. Be on the lookout, here pretty soon. I'm wanting to do another fundraiser. We haven't done that in a while. I'm kind of looking at a couple of different organizations, some place that will really benefit from a little pick-me-up, especially in the years of the COVIDs, of the COV, right? So, anyway, that's it. And the song of the day, this is not so much by special request, but I found out Lizzy loves the Distillers, so I have specifically held off on playing this band up until this very episode. So this is the Distillers. This is a badass punk band, been around for a while, and this song is called The Hunger. And dude, they just, ass-kicking good music. So without any more rambling or ranting on my behalf, my part, here is the Distillers with The Hunger.
Holy eyes, never know, back down at your feet. Oh,